Nightmare of the Wolf, a Witcher animated movie showcasing Geralt's mentor and father figure Vesemir, is now out on Netflix, and you should watch it if you like the Witcher games, books, or Netflix show, even a little bit. But I guess why would you watch this movie if you didn't like The Witcher? Who watches things they don't like? Weirdos. No spoilers first, this was a great movie, but if you're a big Witcher fan, you're probably going to be upset with some changes and tweaks they made in lore. Without spoiling anything, there were some plot points that I'm not too happy with, and it's weird that Netflix themselves contradicted lore that they wrote on their official Witcher website. Netflix, you can't do that. If you publish lore on your website for your show, you can't then just change it all willy-nilly. People that are psychotic fans like me will notice, and we will throw huge temper tantrums. But I don't think any of the changes or contradictions made it so the movie was awful or unwatchable. It was just more of a, okay. But I'll get more into the inconsistencies and changes they made once I get into spoilers later in the video. But for now, I'll say I found some of the changes or interpretations a bit weird. I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with Vesemir in his youth, and for people not familiar with him, you're meeting him much older in season 2 of Netflix The Witcher. I really can't wait to see the differences between young Vesemir, well, young for a Witcher, and much older and mature Vesemir that we will see in the live-action show season 2. The movie does jump between child Vesemir and adult Vesemir, so we get a good range of his life, though there are some big events that aren't shown that disappointed me a little bit. I wish we could have seen more of his childhood, but you can only fit so much in a movie. The new characters they introduced were all interesting as well. A few of them definitely did not go in the direction I thought they would. If you watch my trailer breakdowns, some of them, wow. I think the movie showed the power and abilities of mages a lot better than what we've seen in the main show. I understand it's a lot easier to do crazy spells in animation than live action, but the magic was very inconsistent and underwhelming in the first season of the main show, and honestly the mages disappointed me a little bit. But, you know, it's like on the other side, Vesemir doing all those crazy jumps and flips in this movie. That's something you can do in anime and with animation, and it looks great. But live action, you know, maybe not quite so much. It looks a bit ridiculous unless you go really artistic with it. So given the style of animation they went with, it makes sense they were a bit more dramatic than what you'd see in a live action show. And the action scenes were great. I'm a huge fan of anime in general, so when I say the fights were beautifully done, you have to understand my bias, though. This might not be your thing. But if you're looking for some intense gore, there definitely is a lot of brutality, but it didn't go nearly as far as I thought it would. Yeah, people get reduced to bloody mist, but it wasn't anything that made me cringe in disgust. The trailers for the movie made it look a lot bloodier than what it actually was, to be honest. Speaking of bloody mist, happy the amount of monsters in this movie. Like, holy shit, I love monsters that terrify me, which admittedly are most because I'm a chicken shit. Like, sleep with lights on after watching a zombie movie chicken shit. But we did get a wide range of monsters, and I am so thankful for that. I know season 2 of the main show will have more monsters, but I doubt to the level we got in Nightmare of the Wolf. I could have dealt with more monsters, but, you know, I'm greedy, and when it comes to Witcher, I can always take more. By the way, there's a bathtub scene and we get a full butt shot. Overall, the story is great, although it went by way too fast. The animation, gorgeous, and the voice acting, fantastic. I know I'm a Witcher fangirl and that influences this rating, but yeah, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Okay, now I'm going to do spoilers for Nightmare of the Wolf. If you haven't seen it, go watch it on Netflix, or don't. I'm not in charge of you. If I was, we'd be playing Spirit Island right now. So, like, how are you going to open up a movie with a 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ attack? Fucking brutal, just tearing those little kids apart. Though because their dad died first, they were technically orphans, so it was a bit less tragic. The 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ was every bit as terrifying looking as I thought it would be. If you've played the games, it does look a bit different here, but we already knew Netflix wanted to have their own take on monsters. But yeah, opening with the 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ taking out that family was just an awesome way to drop us in. Though I thought for sure the 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ was going to be a bigger monster or piece in the movie, but nope. We got the opening with the 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠, Vesemir took care of it, and we moved on to the real big bad. I was actually looking forward to being terrified throughout the whole movie as the 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ killed more and more and then showed up at Kaer Morhen. At least we're getting another 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ in season 2 of the main show, so if you were disappointed with how quickly the 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ died in this movie, we were promised a 𝐿𝑎𝑠℠ in the main show that's going to be so intense, it's going to take multiple Witchers to take him down. Or her down. Sorry, I wasn't trying to gender the 𝐿𝑚. I know witchers have a harsh life, and they aren't exactly a virtuous knight, but seeing how cruel Vesemir was actually kind of shocking. Like, I know he was a hard dude, but damn, telling that kid practice your sad face and maybe a passerby will offer you a ride after his entire family was killed? Cold-blooded, and Vesemir taking money off men that were still alive, though dying, without even trying to help him. He's like, meh. I guess when you grow up a servant that isn't given any empathy, it can cause you to lack that and just look out for yourself when you finally get the opportunity, but it was a little shocking. Degland was a bit of a disappointment. I thought for sure we'd see more of the bond between Vesemir and Degland, but they really underdeveloped their relationship for whatever reason. And also, I don't know why they did this. They changed Vesemir being taken as a prize for the Law of Surprise by Degland and just erased that. In the movie, Vesemir just decided to go to Kaer Morhen. It was kind of weird, especially since Netflix published that they were going with Degland and the Law of Surprise route, and then they didn't. God, I would have loved to see more of the boys being trained to become witchers. The entire process, which you knew was brutal given the descriptions we have in the books, but their training methods did seem a bit dumb in the movie. I feel like there's a better way to weed out the boys than dropping them in a spooky swamp completely unprepared. It is like they wanted those little kids to die, which I completely understand, but it was still a bit jarring. Watching them get obliterated was oddly fun to watch though, and this is coming from someone that doesn't like violence for violence sakes. Maybe it was the monster angle going ham on people that made it fun to watch, or maybe I'm just a freak, maybe both. But yeah, I would have loved to see the trials in more detail. I loved Lady 𝒉𝒽𝒻, and I now understand why they never gave her first name in the promo material despite listing all the other characters' first names. The twist that Lady 𝒉𝒽𝒻 was his childhood love, Ilyana, was crazy good. I haven't seen a twist like that in a while or been moved by one to that level in a long time, and the fact Vesemir was so into her despite her looking like a woman in her 60s and him having slow aging and still looking like a very youthful man was really beautiful. That shows a level of love and maturity I actually wasn't expecting to see from him, especially after we saw how cruel he could be throughout the movie. Vesemir has completely won me over with that. Though I already loved old Vesemir in the book, so. Ugh, and god, that twist that the kitsune used an illusion to make Vesemir think he was fighting Tetra and her, but in reality he was fighting and killed Redrick and then fatally stabbed Ilyana. That was rough. Like, I paused and I just went, what the fuck? At least he got to take her to the lake before she died. And if you think about it, her surviving maybe would have been a bit more heartbreaking because Vesemir would have to continue to see her age and her health fail. Though maybe that would be better than accidentally killing the love of your life. I have a feeling 𝐿𝑚 is more eager to kill Geralt in the book/show because of the kitsune thing. Imagine if you learned a witcher experimented on your people and fertile female elves are in short supply with elves, so that's a big deal in this world, and created this monster that started kidnapping more of your elven girls for these crazy experiments. I'd probably be on the fuck witchers camp too. And 𝐿𝑚 really gutted me this movie. You can see how much the stress of his people's decline has gotten to him. The "you won" to Tetra was horrible. Humans came to the continent via the conjunction of spheres and just destroyed the elves and their way of life. And then the humans were just still assholes to them and still kept taking more and more and more. I did not think Tetra would start off being a witcher hater, but it makes sense as a lot of mages don't like witchers at all. I guess I thought they'd get along for a bit and then she'd be swayed against him, but nope. She started with the witcher hate right away. Though if a witcher had lied and I watched them kill my mother simply for coin, and the fact they knew I was also watching, I'd have a hate boner for witchers too. Though certainly you don't need a tragic backstory for mages to just plain hate witchers. Vesemir and Tetra didn't go as long on an adventure as I thought they would, but I think they wanted to keep the pacing of the movie a bit fast. But what a crazy bitch. She was so blinded by hatred and revenge she couldn't see most of the witchers were not responsible for the creation of those creatures. She wiped out everyone but Vesemir and the boys because she just could not cool her jets. Or calm her titties or whatever. Interesting that Degland worked with Redrick to create hybrids. Mages have been known to create monsters, and we see Geralt deal with some of those creations in the books, but the fact Degland was in on it and helping the creation was pretty shocking. The way they described his character did not match the man we saw. His logic was understandable though. Witchers, through their job, reduce the amount of work they have in the future. They killed their own business. If Witchers could create more monsters in secret to have more jobs and make more money, it would work out for them. But degland should have understood the risks of people finding out Witchers were creating monsters to hunt for money though. There's already so much hate and prejudice against Witchers, he just shoveled on a huge new steaming pile of it. I guess, to be fair, we did learn other Witcher schools were doing similar things with creating monsters, so... But Triss in the books makes it sound like they were just a bunch of fanatics that stormed Kaer Morhen simply due to discrimination. This makes it look like it was more justified. I'm actually getting the idea that Witchers before Vesemir took over as the only leader of Kaer Morhen, that Witchers actually kind of deserved the hate they got. The swindling, the killing of innocent people for coin, and thinking that was just clever was awful. I would like to hope that's why the boys Vesemir trains are a lot more noble than the Witchers we saw in this movie. Which, side note, I understand Geralt does lie quite a bit, especially about the Witcher code and such, but he doesn't do the cold-blooded things we saw with these earlier Witchers. Speaking of training the boys and Geralt, as soon as they mentioned Eskel and Lambert, I knew Geralt was in that group as he grew up and trained with them. I guess having him be bald was the best way to keep it a secret, as I think if we saw a little boy with white hair, we'd instantly go, oh, Geralt. Weird we didn't see Vesemir get Geralt through the Law of Surprise, though. Vesemir seemed a bit busy to be picking up kids, to be honest. I do love Vesemir chose to train the boys to be better than his predecessors because of what happened with Degland, Tetra, and the attack on Kaer Morhen. I guess that does give Geralt some romantic notions of his job that quickly get squashed, though. The fight at the Witcher Keep was excellent, by the way. Sad to see all those Witchers die, but them facing off against a horde of monsters, humans, and magical creatures, it was just a wild ride. How often do you get to see a bunch of Witchers fighting together against an army of enemies? Just fantastic. Also, the little boy that lost his arm during the trials, casting and fighting as an adult, really cool. Total shock, by the way, that Luca was killed by beheading right then and there in front of the king instead of the keep defending it. I didn't see that coming. You always gotta kill the ginger. Oh, I get super excited when Vesemir said A Question of Price, just like the flashback story A Question of Price in the first Witcher prequel book, The Last Wish. I know, stupid, but I just want to throw that out there. So yeah, I'm likely going to watch this movie multiple times. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if we can get more Witcher animated movies, I'd be in heaven. So 9 out of 10 for me, but I have garbage taste. So like, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of Nightmare of the Wolf.